Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host Ashwin. I'm joined by DJ. DJ, it's been a big week in the world of cricket. It feels like it was forever ago, but India has announced their T20 squad or their squad for the T20 World Cup, and we have not yet had a chance to talk about it. And then it's been actually weirdly a little bit of a quiet week in the IPL. We went through a week of 250 plus scores happening like they were the new normal, and then we had a bunch of matches back to back where there were 160s, 150s, some in some cases being defended. So let me ask you, how did you feel about this week of the IPL overall?
So this week Delhi didn't really play, so I wasn't really very
One
invested in
game,
the
one
IPL.
loss, and then it was done. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say the big news, as you say, is the India T20 World Cup squad, and we're going to get into all of that. There've been some interesting memes flying around, some interesting emissions. So yeah, can't wait to talk to you about all of that stuff, man.
Yeah. And so just before we get into the squad, because I'm very cognizant after 4, 5, 6 years of being on the show that will take up most of our time discussing it. Let's run through really quickly what's going on in the IPL points table and some of the headlines of what happened this week, right? It does feel, if you start to look at the points table, like you're starting to see the top two basically cement their positions. And a week ago, it was basically Rajasthan. And KKR, since we last spoke, DJ, has won 3 out of 3 and has leapfrogged their way to the top. Now they've played one extra game over Rajasthan, but pretty safe to say at the top you got KKR and Rajasthan, and with 16 points with 3 and 4 games in hand, pretty safe, right? Short of something absolutely drastic, pretty safe to say they're going to qualify.
Yeah, in a way, it's good that the top two are pulling away a little bit, which opens up the third and fourth spot in a very interesting kind of dogfight to the end of the IPL league stage, where any of four teams could qualify, right? They're all sitting on about 12 or 10 points, including, surprisingly, the Delhi team that Varun predicted would finish guaranteed last. So,
Yeah.
interesting.
So your top two are basically, and again, let me just quickly, without because we're not going to have time this week to go through game by game. KKR, 3 matches, 3 wins. How is Sunil Narine batting like it's 2014 and bowling like it's 2012? Like, it feels like he's found both his best batting form and some of, maybe not quite his best, but some of his best bowling form at the same time. And that has really been the game changer for them, right, this season?
Yeah, I mean, Narayan has been absolutely incredible. He's uh, put out an actual statement saying that he's not coming back into the West Indies fold, which I think Rovman Powell, who's now the T20 captain, was trying to say that he's been speaking to Narayan every day to try and convince him. So he shut the door on that speculation. But preseason, I mean, he had a terrible kind of last 2, 3 seasons with the bat. He went down the order again. But every game, he's just come out, swung, missed, and he's connected more often than not. His batting has been brilliant. His bowling action, which had been under scrutiny, seems to have worked this season as well. I don't know whether I saw someone talking about his bowling action. Maybe Ashwin was talking about his bowling action. Maybe that was fake news. I don't know.
I mean, I believe he was, but I didn't actually watch the clip. I've only seen it all over social media. But Ashwin basically refused to talk about it, and in not engaging was making his own kind of statement. Did you just crack a beer? That sounds great, like a great way to spend your Monday
It's a
holiday.
it's a it's a it's a sparkling water, man.
It
It's
was
it's a
nice and loud
bank
and
holiday.
clear. The crack of the can was nice and crisp. I appreciate that you didn't even go on mute to do that. But yeah, I think Ash talked about it, but I don't have all the specifics. But it seems like there's something a little contentious. Ash, by the way, who has tried to imitate Narayan's action before? Do you remember that when he did?
Yeah,
Anyway,
and he
yeah.
wore long sleeves as well. Remember once as an experiment, quote unquote. So pretty funny. But no, Narayan's had a fantastic season. I mean, he's been the point of difference, along with Salt Philman that Varun likes to call Phil Salt, who was a Delhi
Yeah.
player last week, right? Last year.
Yeah, and so then the only other thing for KKR, really, truly, I mean, it's been a pretty solid performance. Every different people have stepped up. Venkatesh Iyer got some runs on the board. They almost collapsed at one point, and they brought in Manish Pandey as an impact sub mid innings, which you knew I had to talk about, and managed to get runs. But again, this was against the Mumbai side, which we're going to talk in a second. But man, trust the Mumbai team to allow somebody like a Mitchell Stark to be bowled back into form, right? I think he picked up 4 for 33 in that innings. I mean, it's just the season Mumbai's having, right? They're all but disqualified, or not disqualified, but eliminated from the playoffs, right? Sitting at 6 points from 11 matches. I mean, it just it just seems like that kind of season. Delhi has had those, so I empathize greatly. But even somebody like a Mitchell Stark, who's in horrendous form, started to find a little bit, and then it took the opportunity to play against Mumbai for him to find his form again, right?
Yeah, I mean, Delhi used to bring out of form players back into form. The most expensive buy in the history of the IPL had a total damn squib of a season, comes back, takes
Chris
four for.
Morris. Oh, you're talking about Stark. I thought you were still talking about Chris Morris with Delhi. Yeah, keep going.
No, no. So Stark comes and takes 4 wickets, sort of justifying. He seemed pretty pumped about the whole thing, which was good. I don't know. You also sent a meme, or maybe Varun sent the meme around the bottom three teams were the three teams that were involved in the
Yeah.
Hardik Pandya transfer. So talk us through
Yep.
that a little.
I mean, yeah, at the time of recording this, RCB has won one more game and leapfrogged their way to seventh. But for quite a while there, the three bottom teams were the Mumbai Indians, the Gujarat Titans, and RCB. And all three were involved in the Hardik Pandya trade because you were wondering about RCB. They had to buy or take buy, trade, whatever the word is, Cameron Green to make room for Hardik to move from Gujarat to Mumbai. So all three teams involved in the Hardik transfer were at the bottom. But DJ, then so we talked the top two, KKR and Rajasthan's kind of cementing. The bottom, Mumbai basically cemented at 6 points from 11 games. You then have three more teams tied with just 8 points from 11 games. Mathematically, maximum of 14. Mathematically possible, but basically, like, with very, very, very low probability, right? I'm talking about Gujarat, who's second from the bottom, quite a fall from where they were last season. Punjab third from the bottom, and then RCB. Although they found 3 wins this week out of 3 matches, they mathematically kept themselves alive. But it's a stretch, right, to be at 8 points with only 3 games remaining, and back yourself to qualify.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think that bottom three are going to qualify for sure. Yeah, I don't think that's a discussion.
What changed with RCB? Was it a little bit of mindset that, listen, we got nothing to lose anymore? Was it truly just, hey, Kohli finally had, other than DK for a little bit, Kohli finally had somebody else batting well, whether it was a Faf or what else changed for RCB? Was it just Faf's form?
I mean, there's a bit. There's Fab Swam. Karan Sharma came in. Other teams fell off. It's always a case of like the games are close, right? Like you may lose 4 or 5 games, but RCB weren't getting thrashed. Like Delhi were getting thrashed halfway through the season by like hundreds of runs. RCB weren't losing that badly. I mean, they lost a couple of games where they underperformed with the bat. Um, but it's a long tournament, and it's kind of nice to see a little bit of a bounce back from RCB given the passionate fan base that they have. But no, it's not going to be a season where they're going to break their jinx of not winning the men's IPL trophy, I should say.
Yeah, seems unlikely, but mathematically, like I said, anything is possible. It always messes with my head a little bit because in an 8 team IPL, 14 points was the magic number. And in a 10 team, it's 16 ideally, maybe more. And so I'm sitting here thinking, well, if they can get to 14, it could work, but not an easy. Not an easy task, especially with both Punjab and CSK, and of course Delhi left to play. Could be an interesting run for RCB in their final matches. And so then, DJ, that brings us to the middle of the table with four teams basically vying for 2 spots. You have CSK, Hyderabad, and Lucknow all at 12 points. And you have Delhi at 10 points. Mathematically, Hyderabad also has a game in hand. So they could theoretically get all the way up to 20 if they win all four of their matches remaining. So you have to say they're probably currently in the front runner position to try to get to that one of those playoff spots. I think what was super critical for them this week was beating Rajasthan and doing so by 1 run. Because you think about this, if that match had gone a slightly different direction, Rajasthan would have been firmly at the top, and Hyderabad would have been at 10 points with Delhi, still game in hand. How great was that game? I mean, the
It
Hyderabad
was a
team made,
fantastic game. Yeah.
yeah, talk us through it. Hyderabad made 201, and then it took. I don't want to call him don't want to call him a legend or an old school guy because he's still fit, but it took Bhuvi refinding that form that he is best known for. I mean, Bhuvi at his best in tennis, which is another sport I watch a lot about. You talk a lot about not only like how well players are doing, but you talk about who has a high ceiling and who has a high or a low floor, right? So yes, Bhuvi's floor has been pretty low at times, but man, his ceiling is so high when he's at his best. How great a bowler is he?
No, fantastic. And of course, it went down to the last ball, defending two of one ball. That could have been a recipe for disaster if the umpire had got that wrong, right?
With, by the way, the captain of the West Indies team, Robin Powell, who you just mentioned, batting. He was on 27 or 14, I think, at the time. I mean, all the odds would have said. Yeah, so talk us through that scenario, actually, right? If it wraps you on the pad and it's been given out, of course, in this scenario, it ended up being out. Powell reviewed, it ended up staying out, no issue. What happens if it's given out and the decision's overturned? Because the ball is dead the second the finger gets raised, right?
Yeah. And we've been saying this for a long time, right? Like, what happens if this happens in the World Cup final on the last ball? Because we've had some pretty odd things happen in the World Cup final, right? Of late, well, let's say 2019. Let's not talk about 2023. But it was, I mean, surely the answer is that the umpire waits until the the play is completed, right? Surely that must be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it feels so awkward to think about getting wrapped on the pad. The bowler, if the bowlers has to, I think I could argue if the bowler has to stop what he's doing to appeal, then he may not be in position to execute a run out, which is what they would have needed if it was not out, right? So if the bowler and keeper are both down with their hands raised appealing, then how are they going to get a run out? And so then you're saying you have to get rid of the appeal altogether and just if it hits the pads, the umpire should review it for an LBW
I
in
don't know. You've
everything.
just got to make an appeal, right? You don't have to keep appealing. You say, "How's that?" and you move on, and you
But there's
carry
an
on with
art
the
to the longer
play.
you appeal, the more pressure you put, the more likely he is to give it. I don't know. It's so fascinating because I don't know how you solve it. But
No, so I mean, it could have gone really badly wrong, right? That's the whole point.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it didn't. And a phenomenal win for Hyderabad. And it keeps the. I mean, Rajasthan had won 7 out of 8, I think it was at that point, or 8 out of 9 even. And it would have just been very, very significant. I think that final over by Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, that final delivery ended up being incredibly significant to who ends up qualifying on the points table. DJ, the one other game I have to ask you about because the other team that's fighting for playoff contention, three losses out of the last five, but then the last two games were back-to-back series, if you will, against Punjab, in which there was one win and one loss, and I'm talking about the CSK team. Let me start by asking you about CSK's new number 9. First time in the history of cricket that Dhoni has walked out to bat at number 9, as far as I can tell. What was the rationale? What was the thought process?
I don't know. There isn't any thought process. It's just a new role, isn't it? He's doing. Let the youngsters do something for a change. But this was a game where he finally got out. He finally
First
got
bowler.
out.
Listen,
He
even
just
if he's
kept it
not
quiet.
making runs, he's not wasting balls, right? And
Yeah,
that's
that's
why
it.
it's
And that was your problem with him when he was an India player, right? Like, why is he scored 50 of 72 when everybody else has got out quickly?
yeah. No, I mean his whole thing was batting. That his whole thing was batting deep, and I didn't have a problem with him when he was an India player. But I think fundamentally, I think you as a CSK fan, you just have to, I hope, come to terms with the fact that this is just a farewell season. He's batting at 9. He's still keeping great, and so he justifies his spot in the team there. But in an ideal world, if you're trying to map out your perfect composition, if you have a keeper that doesn't want to bat anything more than call it 6 to 8 balls, maximum of 12, 13, that makes it very, very difficult to select. But he is MS Dhoni. He can do whatever he wants. And I think it's
Yeah.
fair if he's sort of said, listen, I want to get one final season. It's unclear to me right now, based on how they've been performing, a little bit inconsistent, etc. That it's unclear to me whether he'll get to lift a trophy in his final, in his final send off. What is your take? Do you think
I
CSK has what it takes?
So I know Gil said that don't say that when Gujarat Titans are playing, but I mean CSK have a record that they've made the playoffs more often than not, right? And once you're in the
Yeah,
playoffs, yes, there's arguments that people in the eliminator tend to win less and stuff, but I think CSK have won the whole thing while playing the eliminator rather than the qualifier one. So I think they'd be focused right now on getting through. Pathirana's injured as well. I think he didn't play this last game, which was annoying because he was my fantasy vice captain.
yeah, same man. And it was a 5 a.m. start game for me, so I couldn't see the
Yeah.
squad in time to change it. But yeah, that was annoying.
Um, but I mean, good win for them, right? In the end. because they needed those points. They were looking like they were slipping. They were.
I mean, listen, at 101 for 5 in 12 overs, and you end at 167 in this season where 230 plus has been chased down, phenomenal win. To win from 167 is absolutely phenomenal. Credit to Jadeja, who showed up with the ball. Credit, a lot of credit actually to Tushar Deshpande, who came in having to play that Pathirana role, honestly, which is not easy, and picked up two early wickets, I think, and that changed the course of the game. So
Yeah, yeah.
DJ, it's a little bit of cheating here, but this stage in the game, with each team that has about 3, maybe 4 games left to play, this stage in the tournament, who do you predict your final for?
Okay, so obviously RR and KKR are nearly through, right? So
Yes,
that leaves Sunrisers, CSK,
Lucknow and Delhi is the
Delhi.
next 4. If you're eliminating the bottom 4,
I think the bottom, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't back the bottom four to make it.
sure.
Maybe, I don't know, Delhi. I don't think Delhi's going to qualify, right? So let's cut them out.
Okay,
I think the CSK pedigree will ensure that they go through. So that's CSK. And then the choice is between Hyderabad and Lucknow. And I mean, Varun would love me to say this, but Hyderabad, I think, looked okay this season. They've
yeah,
set the tournament alight. They've become an interesting team to watch, right? Because they've played the game in a way which has been exciting, and they were a very boring team for a long time. Because and some of that may be prejudice because we like seeing fours and sixes,
yeah,
and they were a bowling heavy team.
yeah. And
Uh,
suddenly they've gone to the other extreme, right?
they've gone to the other extreme, and I mean they've got a World Cup winning captain in there, right? And a World Test Championship winning captain, and that leadership change has clearly worked for them. So I mean, I think it's going to be CSK and SRH. I'd be surprised if it's anybody else, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The piece that I didn't give you is just the run in the final few matches, right? SRH has 4 left, and all 4 of them are below them in the table: Mumbai, Lucknow, Gujarat, and Punjab. You'd back them to win the 2 out of the 4 that they need in that. I mean, anything is possible in the IPL. We've seen that time and time again.
Yeah.
But you'd back them to win 2 of those 4, I think. CSK, on the other hand, has to play Gujarat, Bangalore, who are below them, but also has to play Rajasthan. So that's where I think CSK, that CSK versus Rajasthan match is going to be really interesting, because if RR comes out, now if RR next has to play Delhi, and if they get the win, which is probably their favorites to, they'd have 18 points. They might start trying some things with their combination and resting some players, etc., if they're guaranteed a qualification, which unlikely until you've cemented the top 2 spot, but they might. And in that scenario, CSK has an opening potentially if RR is not playing a full strength side. So it's going to be a very, very, very interesting
What are
run.
your picks? What are your
So I
picks?
think KKR and Rajasthan are confirmed for me. I think Hyderabad makes it. I'm predicting actually that. So I have a little bit of bias because I think this is a good segue into our next topic. But I think the players who didn't get a T20 World Cup call out or shout are going to be out for revenge. And so I think Lucknow, you expect to see Lucknow show up and Rahul to show up and kind of make a statement that he felt like he should have been selected. So I think Lucknow will leapfrog Chennai in the run-in. I think Chennai's got the pedigree, no question, but they have not quite figured out how to use Daryl Mitchell. They haven't quite figured out how to use Moeen Ali. They're still playing Rahane at the top of the order. It's a lot of questions, and I think short of Ruturaj finding form again at the top of the order, CSK would have looked like a very, very different side this season. So
Okay.
it'll be interesting
I'm
to
still
see.
holding out for another Dhoni trophy. So let's see.
Always, 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 always. All right, DJ, why don't we take a very quick break? We will be back and talk all things T20 World Cup squad. If this is the one part you've been waiting for, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. If you're just joining us, we're going to talk about the T20 World Cup squad. But before you go anywhere, or before anything else, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is, give us a nice 5-star review. Send us some feedback. We always love to hear from you. We're at One Tip One Hand on all the socials, or email us at contact@onetiponehand.com.
Actually, our email is changed now, Ashwin. It's
All right.
1tip100@gmail.com.
There you go. The server probably wasn't doing its best. So email us at onetiponehand@gmail.com. It's DJ, it's that time. All right. So it feels like in my head it was forever ago. That's the nature of these once a week podcasts, where something comes out on a Monday morning, you miss it, and then you have to talk about it a week later. India squad for the T20 World Cup. So I will run down it really quickly, and then we can just chat through your reactions, notable omissions, etc. So in the final 15 are Rohit Sharma, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Virat Kohli, Surya Kumar Yadav, Rishabh Pant, Sanju Samson, Hardik Pandya, Shivam Dubey, Ravindra Jadeja, Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, Yuzvendra Chahal, Arshdeep Singh, Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj. There are 4 reserves: Gill, Rinku Singh, Khalil, and Avesh. Overall, kind of marks out of 10 on this one. I see you shaking your head. If you're listening in audio, you don't get to see that, but DJ started shaking his head as I read through it. Are you disappointed with the squad
I'm
selection?
gonna give it 3 on 10, man. It's not
3
disappointing.
on
It's expected. That's the point. Right? It's expected. There's nothing disappointing because you expect this same squad. Ashwin, so I'm gonna ask you, how many of those players are Test players
Rohit,
out of the
Jas-
top
Rohit
15?
Jaiswal, Kohli. I'm excluding Sky, even though he has played, but let's take
He's
him out.
played a Test match, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm taking him out. I don't think he's a test player. Rohit Jaiswal, Kohli, Pant, Jadeja, Akshar, Kuldeep, Bumrah, Siraj. Maybe you can say Hardik, but he hasn't played in a while. But 9
9 out of your top 15.
play test.
If your T20 squad looks so much like your Test squad, are you doing that right? Is my question to you.
I mean, it's interesting. I'm trying to pull up at Varun did send us his squad as of 14th April, and he's not on this episode today. But I want to go through what he said. I have him in front of me. He said Rohit Jaiswal, Kohli, Sky, Dubey, Rinku, Pant, Pandya, Jadeja, Bumrah, Kuldeep. He had Chahal / Bishnoi. I'll give him that one. Siraj, Arshdeep, and his differences were he had Gill and Rinku. He did not have Samson, and I'm trying to do quick comparison on the fly. Maybe Samson was the only one he didn't have. Samson, Rohit, Jaiswal. Anyway, he had Gill and Rinku, and they're both traveling as reserves. What is your assessment on that?
I'm okay
Oh,
with
I'm
that.
sorry. He didn't have Akshar. He didn't have Akshar. That was the difference.
So I wouldn't have cared about Gill because we've got enough people that can do the job that Gill does. I'm upset that Rinku isn't in there.
Yeah.
And we've taken no chances with this squad at all. I mean, Samson is a good pick, but he's made himself unignorable. The question there is he going to be first choice or is he going to be kind of second choice behind Pant? I don't know. We've talked about this last week, I think, left-handedness versus 4, 5, whatever. And
Yep.
Agarkar and Rohit were quite clear that they've picked him because they picked these two and not KL because KL is batting top of the order. And that's exactly what we'd said as well, right?
Yeah.
We've got 4 spinners. Are these? Do we need 4 spinners? We've got Arshdeep back in, but I mean, you look
Okay.
at the
Sorry.
top 6.
Before you go, and I can sense you're frustrated and feeling negative. But before you go to that, you said Samson has made himself unignorable, and Chahal is back in the squad, and Dubey. Are you happy for these guys? That's something worth celebrating, right? These guys have all kind of worked their way back and deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, Dubey's had 2 good IPL seasons. The
Yeah.
question is he going to bowl? And I don't
Yeah.
know whether he's got a new remodel bowling action and stuff. I think we saw him maybe earlier in the year. He was a little bit quicker than he was previously. He's been smashing it. He's been a spin hitter. We don't know what the US pitches are going to tell
But the
us.
assumption so far has clearly been they're going to be spinning, right? The West
Yeah,
Indies is
because
typically
you've
spinning
just
wickets.
like, yeah, but you don't know. These are all drop-in pitches that are being built right now, man. So you tell us, you're the one that lives in the US. What's
And they're
happening with the
theoretically being
construction?
built in Australia and
Is
moved
it?
over. Yeah, so
Wow.
that's also going to be very interesting. But yeah, I think it's fair assumption to say they'll be spinning wickets. That's why they've picked 4 spinners. That's why they've picked batters who can bat against spin in at least in Dubai. But yeah, but let's pause and be excited for these guys for a quick second. Right, seeing Chahal back in the squad, incredible. I mean, Kulcha. There was a point when I thought I'd never see Kulcha bowl in tandem. We may still not. By the way, the first 3 choice spinners are probably Jadeja, Kuldeep, Akshar in that order before Chahal gets a look. But you never know. And then, yeah, man, I was just really happy for Samson. You know, there's at least the hardest job of the selectors is there's at least 20 guys trying to break down the doors. in an Indian in any India setup. And so there was always going to be two to three who you're gutted for that got missed out. We'll talk them next. But how great for Samson. He's not only had a great season with the bat, he's had an excellent season as skipper. And that goes a very long way. And so kudos to him, right?
Now, I'm happy for the guys that got picked, but have a thought about the guys that didn't get even forget the 15, even into the reserve. Rian Parag,
Yeah.
right? We've been talking for a long time about this guy. He's finally had a good IPL season. You want people who can bat and bowl. You've not won this particular tournament playing this brand of cricket with specialists. How many specialists do we have in that team? It's how many?
Yeah.
The question is how many all rounders have you got, right? And
Four, right? If you
let's count the wicket keepers as all rounders.
So a six if you include the all wicket keepers, which is not bad, I guess. I think you could argue in a 15-person squad, maybe there's room for three specialist batters, three specialist bowlers. So you should
Yeah,
have
but
more.
not out of the 11. How many are you going to play?
I mean, what's the 11 you're going to play?
Yeah, but one wicket keeper, obviously, out of those two. I'd
No, but
imagine.
what is so
Jadeja,
let's get to the
Pandya.
question of what 11 you play before we talk more, because who misses out from this 15, right? You can argue you play two of Arshdeep, Bumrah, and Siraj, maybe one even,
Yeah.
right? You
So
can
I'd
argue.
say it'll be Arshdeep and Bumrah
Okay,
as
so you're picking two
top two,
quicks, then you're
left
picking
hand, right
Kuldeep
hand.
for sure. Are you
Yeah.
picking a second specialist spinner, or do you go straight to Jadeja or Akshar?
Jadeja, you go straight to him.
Straight
You
to
go to
Jadeja.
Jadeja. And
So
they're
you
both
got,
a swap for each other. Yeah.
and then do you take Dubey and Hardik as all
No,
rounders to give
you
you
only
both?
pick Hardik. You pick Hardik.
So then you don't have a sixth bowling option.
That's the point. That's what I've been trying to
That's
say.
been the issue all along, I guess, right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
if you have Rian Parag, he's been in fantastic form, finishing games, rescuing Rajasthan in part of a winning team. Again, this is just one example, right? You've got others like Nitish Reddy who bowled well. You've got take a chance. The only time we've won this is when Joginder Sharma got Misbah to Huck out.
2007, when the whole squad looked. I mean, if you picked a
And,
2007 esque squad, you're going a completely different direction, right?
and that's the point. Like when we won in 2007, what was the one thing that changed? The seniors said, let the kids do it.
Yeah.
Sachin, Ganguly, Dravid, Lakshman sat out. And it's the definition of madness doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You sent me the meme, or Varun sent me the meme, where we listed out the top six of the Indian team since
It's been the same.
2021 World Cup, right? It's one change, Jaiswal for Rahul, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes, so, fair. I mean, I think that's. I think the difference was just in 2007 T20 was there was complete uncertainty on whether this format would stay or go. It could have gone the direction of the Hong Kong Sixes or T10 or whatever. Like there've been a lot of quote unquote passing garbage formats, if you will, in our sport. And at the time in 2007, we didn't know if it would stay or not. At this point, it's probably the dominant format in world cricket today. And so now, if you are the seniors who let's just talk about that for a second. You're basically talking about Virat, right? Because Rohit's
And
captain,
Rohit.
but he's
But I
captain.
mean, but Rohit's captain because he hasn't won the 2023 World Cup, the ODI one, and Kohli's not, and he's asked for Kohli. And
Man, for
yes,
me, it comes
when do you
back
move on
down.
from this? When do you move on?
Yeah, but I think the question is it the responsibility of Rohit and Kohli to be the bigger people and say it's time we
No,
step aside? It's not.
no,
It's absolutely
it's
not.
not.
It is the
It's not.
responsibility of the board and the coach to make a
Yeah,
tough call. Gosh, even after Stoinis, the match after Stoinis made his match-winning century, they asked him about the World Cup, and he said, "I think it's time to bring more youngsters in."
yeah.
Right? So
And Jake Fraser McGurk hasn't been picked in Australia.
yeah, which is probably a discussion for next week as we talk about other squads. DJ, talk me through quickly the notable omissions, right? And I'm including reserves because as it stands, they're not in the 15. You can change that through May 25th. So if Gill, Rinku, Khalil, or Avesh has a rock star next 19 days, they might find their way in next 19 days of IPL. But the notable omissions, right? You mentioned Rahul. You have Shubman Gill, Rinku Singh. That second, third pacer spot, there was a couple other guys who were potentially in the running, Natarajan, maybe if you will, and then Bishnoi. Bishnoi is still, at the time of the squad announcement, I think was number 6 ranked T20 bowler in the world, internationals.
Yeah.
and missed out. So thoughts on those omissions? You said
I
Gill
mean,
you're okay with.
the Rinku mission is hard because he's not been given an opportunity by the KKR management as much this season. We saw what he could do last year. He's played for India. He's done well. So it's that one I think hurts a little bit, and he'll be
I
hurting.
I think my only note on that is I don't think it KKR is in second place. If they were at the bottom, it's a different discussion. Or I guess they're first right now. I don't think it's KKR's responsibility to give airtime to
It's
these
not.
guys.
It's
And
not.
so, but it comes back to it's again, it's the BCCI's responsibility to not have the recency bias that you or I might have as
Yeah.
podcast hosts and fans of the game, and look to what Rinku has accomplished
Yeah.
for India, right? So yeah,
Same thing with KL, right? That's the big mission, and it's the same thing. His franchise has said you're going to bat top of the order because that's the best for us. He's batted in the middle of the order for Team India. He's done well. He did well in the ODI World Cup, batting at number 5. There's no reason why he couldn't have done that for the franchise. But the franchise said, "You play for us. We pay your wages."
I think the only difference for me there is he's captain of the franchise, so he probably could make the call. Like if Rinku was captain in KKR and not batting more, not getting more batting time, it's a different discussion. But Rahul is captain of his franchise. He probably
Yeah,
made the call
but he
himself.
can't go against what the franchise coach and all those guys are going to tell him, right? Like you just can't say no. I've got India aspirations, so I'm going to bat 5.
No, I don't disagree, but I think it seems like he probably made the call. But that's off of no. I'm saying that off of no data.
Yeah.
So fair. So Gill and Rahul, I think you're okay with.
I thought
Rinku,
Parag had
yeah.
an outside chance of doing it. I mean, the whole point is who wins these tournaments? People that have got multi-dimensional cricketers. It's been 5 years since we've been talking about this.
Yeah.
West Indies, England, current champions England. How many all-rounders do they have?
Yeah. Half the more than 8 in the 11 to
Australia.
repeat
Australia's
about.
won it
Yep.
in 2021. How
Yeah.
many all-rounders do they have of a similar ilk? I mean, Stoinis
Yeah.
and Mitch Marsh are pretty similar cricketers, right? Like hit a big ball and bowl kind of medium pace rubbish.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So let me just run through a few of the Indian standout performers so far in the IPL and see if you think they had a quick shot. Ruturaj, Sai Sudarshan, Rayan Parag, who you've talked about, obviously, as you see as a
so the
spot,
top two.
and
Let's just
Tilak.
quickly address those.
Yeah.
So the top two, again, top order batters, probably anchors.
Yeah.
They're not going to go
Do,
through.
do they walk right in as soon as India likely loses this World Cup? Rohit and Kohli decide their. I mean, it's the minute Rohit says he's done, Ruturaj is next in line, right?
Possibly.
Or Gill, maybe Gill.
I think maybe Gill. DDP is obviously fallen away now
Yeah.
because he would have been in there a few seasons ago. But Rituraj is captain of the franchise. I think he's probably first in line.
He's got to be. Yeah. Okay. Sai Sudarshan's also probably good backup for the next few years, and if he continues to be in good form,
Yeah.
we'll get a look in. And then Tilak started season a little bit soft, but strengthened, but probably not truly in the reckoning, right? That was just
Yeah.
the top batters top Indian batters. From a bowler standpoint, still tied for the purple cap is Harshal Patel.
Purple.
Did Purple have a realistic shot at all this time?
No. No.
Okay.
Sadly.
Varun Chakravarti, Natarajan, Harshit Rana, and then down further on the list, Mukesh Kumar, shockingly, is 14th on the list of purple cap holders. Any of them have a reasonable shot, or do you feel like I think Siraj is the other question mark, right? Hasn't had a good IPL, but has been a good, and he had a good last match where he finally showed up. I was like, is he playing Gujarat, or is he just visualizing them as Sri Lanka? And is that what's bringing out the best in Siraj? But yeah, thoughts?
So interesting. I think the name there that stood out to me was Harshit Rana. He, I think, has something extra about him, which is interesting. Of course, Mayank Yadav is now injured and out of the
Yeah,
IPL.
yeah,
He would have been a blinder of a selection. But perhaps they could have gone. I mean, when you've gone with Arshdeep, so Arshdeep, I think, was competing against Natarajan for that left-hander spot.
yeah.
And they've gone with Arshdeep, bit younger, bit fitter, possibly. Not been in great form this IPL either. Natarajan nailing those Yorkers could have been a good, uh, kind of good sub. But Harshit Rana, I think, could have given the selectors some food for thought. Bhuvi would be the other one that isn't back in. He played the last one, I think, 2022, perhaps,
Yeah.
if I'm not wrong. But yeah, I
Harshit
mean,
is
my
22.
issue. Yeah,
I think
my
he'll get a
issue with
look.
some of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
selections are that you've picked Akshar and Jadeja in the main squad. Why would you not pick Akshar as a reserve for Jadeja?
So I actually think, and we'll talk this a lot more as we get closer. If they end up seeing spinning wickets, I think there's matches or a world where you pick just Bumrah, then you have Kuldeep as 10 and 11, and then your 6, 7, 8, 9. Something happened on my screen that
Did
just
you just
caused some
send
sort of
balloons
graphics.
up?
I didn't do anything.
Fantastic.
I think it's these new Macs have these gestures or something, so I'll stop doing hand gestures. I think that was an entertaining moment for those of you watching YouTube. Um, I think 10 and 11 could be Kuldeep and Bumrah, and then I think 6, 7, 8, 9 could be Hardik, Shivam, Jadeja, Akshar, and that's the only scenario in which you then have 6 bowling options and batting through 9. And that would be interesting. Now, that means if you play Rohit, Jaiswal, Kohli, Sky, and then one of Pant or Samson, that rounds out your team. But if I did that math all right, I may have. But there's a world where Hardik bats 6, Dubey 7, Jadeja 8, Akshar 9, and you give yourself 3 spinning options, 1 fast and 2 medium options, and then 5 core batters, one of who keeps. Do you know what I mean? Does that add up?
Yeah, I think some of Dubey's selection, by the way, is to cater for Hardik's lack of batting form. To be honest with you,
So if you're
he's
then
the vice
saying
captain, yes,
but
but
you're saying Dubey is a
he's.
backup for Hardik and Akshar's a backup for Jadeja, and I'm saying I think Rohit is seeing all 4 of those guys play in playing
I
better
hope
in some
if he
matches.
is, that's good because that's what we've been asking for
Yeah,
throughout, right?
yeah. All right, we could probably spend the next hour talking about this. If you are listening to this, send us in. Send us on the socials if you're listening as an audio at One Tip One Hand. But if you're on YouTube, put them in the comments. We want to hear from you. What is your gut assessment on the squad? Has the 6 days healed the wounds of the squad announcement initially, and now you're fine with it? Who would your 15 have been, and who is your final 11 going to be going into the World Cup, knowing that the team, like always, will assess conditions, potentially change, etc. DJ, disappointing in the midst of a fun IPL to have a squad that we're not that excited about. I'm still, being an India fan, you have to be a little bit the eternal optimist. I still think this is a good squad. I think Kohli's form has been unbelievable. I think Rohit is perfectly priced to start finding small boundaries, finding those big sixes that we know he's capable of. And I'm very fired up by Jaiswal, Sky, Samson / Punt in the mid in as you're kind of rounding out your batting. So I feel better about it, but that's also probably me just reconciling a little bit or rationalizing, so I can go to sleep at night.
Yeah, I mean, I of course want India to win, right? I
Yeah,
want us to win, and I'd be the first person to be the happiest if I was wrong
yeah,
on this.
yeah.
But how long have we been doing this podcast, and we still haven't won an ICC trophy, have we? 6 years
Maybe
we've been
it's
doing the pod.
us. Is it us?
We should just stop. I
Maybe we
keep
would.
saying we should just stop.
Maybe if we
Maybe
stop
we'll
right
win something.
before, we'll win something and then we can never come back. All right, that's as good a note as I can think of to wrap up. Thank you for joining. Less IPL chat this week because it was a more quiet week, but worked out well. Like I said, send us in what your 15s would be and what your 11 would be. Like, subscribe at One Tip One Hand on all the socials. We'll be back next week as we basically are getting very, very, very close to cementing the playoffs, the final playoff spots of the IPL, and then a couple of weeks away we have the final. So it's going to be coming quick and fast. Lots of cricket happening. DJ, thank you for joining me. This has been the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We will see you next week.